Hello and welcome to a short presentation about the Mount Waddington Regional Housing Needs Report project. The purpose of this video is to introduce stakeholders in the community to the project, let you know about the paths of engagement, and let you know some preliminary findings from the data we've collected thus far. My name is Matt Thompson. I'm the Community Housing Lead for Urban Matters Community Contribution Company. I'm joined here by my colleagues.
My name is Sarah Ravlich. I am a community planner with Urban Matters.
And I'm Sandy Mackey. I'm the Housing Research and Policy Lead at Macola Development Services.
A little bit of background on the project. In 2018, the province of British Columbia passed legislation requiring all local governments to develop and produce housing needs assessment reports. These reports look at a number of different data points, 50 in total, including population trends and issues, affordability and housing profile information, and future demand around who will live in the community, who might move here, who might leave, and what types of housing they might need. Every local government is required to complete these reports by April of 2022, and then to update them every 5 years. In order to support the rollout of these housing needs assessments, a funding program has been established by the province to help the communities meet these legislative requirements. The Regional District of Mount Waddington has partnered with the District of Port Hardy, the Town of Port McNeill, the Village of Alert Bay, and the Village of Port Alice to access funding and undertake the project jointly to get a regional understanding of housing needs and issues. Through an RFP, a request for proposal process, tendering process, a consultant team of Urban Matters, Community Contribution Company, and Macola Development Services was hired to prepare this report and to do all the necessary research and engagement in order to support the development of a robust study. A little bit about us. Urban Matters Community Contribution Company is a team made up of 15 interdisciplinary consultants who specialize in affordable housing, health and social planning, community development, and social innovation. As a community contribution company, every year 60% of our profits are invested back into our innovative community projects across the country. Our community housing team supports communities to build their capacity as they move from identifying housing issues through things like housing needs assessment reports, to developing municipal strategies, to implementing solutions for nonprofit, non-market, or other forms of housing that are needed. We've completed a number of housing needs assessments, including on Vancouver Island, in the Strathcona Regional District, and in Squamish-Lillooet Regional District.
And Macola Development Services is a nonprofit professional consulting firm. We've got approximately 20 staff, including experts in Indigenous relations and communications. And we are committed to supporting vibrant, diverse communities across British Columbia. We've got over 30 years of experience in market and non-market housing, and our interdisciplinary team interacts with all levels of government, including nonprofit organizations, Indigenous communities, provincial and federal entities, and private industry. We're really excited to be working with Urban Matters on this project, and definitely really excited to be working with the Regional District of Mount Waddington and helping you address housing challenges in your communities.
So the project involves 4 major phases. The first phase is now complete and consisted of data collection, compilation, and analysis. We'll be presenting the findings, the high-level findings of some of that data collection in a moment. And as we enter into April and May, we're now into community consultation and public engagement, which consists of a number of different avenues for members of the public and key stakeholders to engage with and give input to this report. And Sandy's going to talk about that in a few minutes. Later in the summer, we'll be entering into phase 3, which is the needs report preparation. So liaising with the regional district and the municipal partners on the project to ensure that the product meets their needs and consists of all the information that they're looking for. And finally, in the fall, and leading into winter, we'll be entering into a capacity building phase. That capacity building consists of workshops with local government to build their ability to replicate these types of reports in the future, but also with the broader community to understand how to access things like funding and development opportunities.
Okay, we're going to share a few of the initial data findings that we've found in the initial phases of this project. So data collection is done through the use of 4 or 5 major sources, those being Stats Canada, the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation, BC Stats, Assessment BC, and then additional data that's provided directly from local governments. It's important to note that much of the information gathered through Stats Canada and BC Stats is associated with the most recent census, which took place in 2016. Changes in community from 2016 to now will be explored further through community engagement and stakeholder conversations. Looking at age, we see that most of the communities across the Mount Waddington region are aging. This is quite typical for both BC and Canada to see an aging population in our communities. It is interesting to note, however, that Port Hardy is seeing the opposite trend of the median age in that community becoming younger over time. Currently, as of 2016, the median age was 37 years, which is quite a bit different to what we're seeing in the other communities. Looking at households' incomes across the region, these are broken down by household type. So looking at couples without children, couples with children, lone parent families, and individuals living alone or with roommates. We see that lone parent families and individuals living alone or with roommates tend to have a much lower household income than couples with or without children who tend to have a dual income in their households. So what this indicates is that it might be far more challenging for particularly lone parents within the region to find suitable and affordable housing for their families. Looking a little further at income, this shows the breakdown of household incomes by owner and renter household. So what we tend to see here is that owner households have higher incomes than that of renters, which allows them to enter the housing market and purchase a home compared to renters who don't have the ability to do that. In some communities, the disparity between owners and renters is quite great, whereas others, they're a little bit closer in actual amount. Interesting here is that Port Alice, we're actually seeing the opposite, where renter households tend to have a higher income than owners. This may be due to the fact that there are a fewer number of renter households in Port Alice overall, but that small number does tend to have a high income, resulting in a higher median. Looking at dwelling units by age, this is the period in time that they were constructed. We see that overall for the region, households or dwellings tend to be older. So a large majority, almost more than 3/4 in some communities, particularly Port Alice, have dwellings that were built between 1961 and 1980. There are a few communities that we can see that have seen some proportion of newer builds, particularly electoral area C has some of the newer dwellings in the region. Looking at housing values, we see that single family homes or dwellings with a suite, so usually a single family home with maybe a basement suite or a secondary dwelling, tend to be valued much higher than other forms of housing. It's important to note that those dwellings with a suite that we see here, there's probably few of those within the community. So again, that fewer number, but maybe higher values increase what we're seeing overall. Looking at the electoral areas, very similar trend here again. So tend to just have more single family homes overall. We can see in some of these areas that there isn't duplexes or triplexes, for example, available, and then the single family homes being valued much higher than other forms of housing. Here we look at core housing need. So core housing need is an important indicator when we look at housing availability and access in a community. So core housing need, what that means is that if a home falls within core housing need, it's meeting a few different criteria. So it may be in need of major repair. There may not be enough bedrooms in that home for the number of people that live within it. And then also that current home costs more than the residents can afford. And the general affordability indicator is around 30%. So if you're paying more than 30% of your household income to your housing, it's generally considered unaffordable. And with core housing need, this also takes into account that there not being other options in the community for that household to move into. So they're paying more than they can afford. It either needs major repair or more bedrooms, and there are no other options in the community for them to meet those needs. So looking at the electoral areas, we just have data available for Area A and Area C. We see that quite a high proportion of households are actually in core housing needs. So in Area A, we see that 31% are in core housing need, and Area C, 21%. When we compare this to municipalities within the region, they're seeing about half the rate of core housing needs. So still fairly high core housing needs, but less than what we see in the electoral areas. So Alert Bay, Port Alice, and Port Hardy are at about 15% of their households are falling within that core housing need, and then Port McNeill at 7%.
Great, and then I will end off our conversation by talking a bit about some of the engagement and qualitative data collection that we're going to be doing over the next few months. One thing that we're really excited about during this study is that we've actually developed a housing questionnaire that's going to be distributed to every home on the North Island with a North Island postal address. So you can visit the online questionnaire by typing the address you see on your screen into your web browser, or you can simply search Mount Waddington Housing Needs questionnaire, and it should be one of the first hits that comes up. But if you prefer to fill out a paper questionnaire, there should be one arriving at your home within the next couple of weeks. And included on that questionnaire will be instructions for how to return it. And we would ask that you return it by June 22nd, 2020, if possible, so we can begin the process of analyzing what we hope is a lot of data from you. And we've got a number of other types of engagement planned, including stakeholder engagement. This will be interviews and focus groups with a number of key stakeholder groups across the region. It might include nonprofit organizations or housing providers, and we're hoping to do those in May and June of 2020. Some of you may have already received emails or requests from us, so we're looking forward to speaking with you if you've got that. And then additionally, we'll be hosting a couple of regional housing forums. These will be to share the results of the Housing Needs Report very widely, but also it will be to hopefully interact with the community members and initiate some housing action that comes out of this report. COVID-19 obviously is going to be impacting our ability potentially to have larger group gatherings, but hopefully these will be occurring near the end of this study, and we'll be able to gather in larger groups. If not, we'll be using some of our online tools and different technologies to allow for smaller group gatherings or for more online versions of housing forums. And if you have any questions at all about this study, anything that Sarah went over in the data, anything that I've talked about in engagement, or anything Matt talked about at the beginning, please feel free to get in touch with Jeff Long, who's the Manager of Planning and Development Services at the Regional District of Mount Waddington. You can reach him by telephone, fax, or at the Regional District's post address. Alternatively, email is probably the best way to get in touch. His email address is jlong@rdmw.bc.ca. And I think that's it for us. So on behalf of Sarah and Matt, my colleagues at Urban Matters, we're really looking forward to getting to know housing better across your region and to helping your communities address housing issues. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.